Hi guys, welcome back, and this time around I'm gonna bring you one of those reviews that I like doing, which is I throw a whole bunch of things together. One of the main reasons for that is actually the fact that I've got a hell of a backlog, and I just want to get these reviews done. On the positive side is that backlog did enable me to be listening to these IEMs that I will be talking to you about today for significantly more time than what I usually do. And sometimes yes, it does help. It does help me either confirm my initial impressions. Sometimes my initial impressions are slightly turned the opposite way, and I actually think by listening to the IM further that I didn't like it as much as I initially thought. Other times it's completely the opposite. Although most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, my initial first impression is very much the impression that I have after I've been listening to those IMs for quite some time, and a lot of them have got more than 50 or 60 hours of playing time. For those that believe that let's say burn-in is something which is significant, I would say that it's more of a brain burn thing than anything else. But anyway, to each its own. I'm not gonna delve into that. I respect that. It's the same thing. The same story goes with cables and so on and so forth. Anyway, what do I have here? And so that I get this out of the way nice and quick, and you are not here listening to me on a Sunday afternoon for hours. I've got here 5 IEMs which are new. The others I have already talked about. The IEMs in question are the Ziggat Lush and the Arcanis, the KiwiEars Astral and the Septet, and the IVipQ Q09. The other ones that I've got here is the Ziggat, the XJ Audio Australia. I've got here the Jazeera 61T. I've got here the High Senior Mega 5 EST 7th Anniversary Edition, and I've got here the KiwiEars also. All of them, yes, have got different configurations. We've got hybrids, tribrids, quadbrids. The Septet is a quadbrid. The High Senior is a hybrid. The IVipQ is a hybrid. So there's a whole bunch of things here, and the main thing that I want to at least try and convey from this review is there's no real winner or loser here. There are IEMs here for every taste. There are IEMs here that will suit people that are more technically inclined and like a more technical sound, a more clinical sound. There are IEMs here which are more organic, more musical. Let's put it that way. There are IEMs here which strike a good balance between the two things. And the reality is this: we, as I've said already many times, we live a time where honestly there isn't really a bad IEM. It's just minor tweaks here and there, minor little touches here and there, from one brand, from the other brand, from the brand itself within its different range, and ultimately, it's just different flavors. A little bit more of mids, a little bit less of vocals, a little bit more of highs, a little bit less of this, of bass, or a bit more bass. But they all, at the end of the day, do sound competent. And overall, what I can say is that the quality of IEMs today in 2025 is light years above what the quality of the IEMs was, let's say, 3 years ago. Okay, in that there's more well-tuned IEMs than what they were back then. And what I'm saying as well by that is that it's not that a lot of these tunings are novel. A lot of these tunings have already been done in the past. It's just that they've now become even more polished, more mature, more better executed. And the main thing is that we are now finding these more mature, these more let's say correct tunings or alternative tunings in IEMs costing significantly less money than what they used to cost a few years ago. Nonetheless, they still are expensive, and depending on where you live in the world, I mean, some of the prices are at times actually quite scary. But anyway, enough of this preview of this talk and so on and so forth. Let's get straight into this. The Ziggat Lush 1+4. I mean, the case, we already know what Ziggat is, what its case. It's always the same sort of case. The cable, I have to say, I didn't really like the cable. I'm not going to deny it. I didn't really like it. I thought, a little bit more effort, I think, could have been done when it comes to the cable. But then again, yes, it is an IM of about $165, $170. So I guess you can't complain too much, but a nicer cable would have been nice, or at least something with the exchangeable terminations. But anyway, Lush. The Lush is Ziggat's interpretation of what I would consider as close as possible to neutral as you can get without it killing you from boredom. And what am I saying by that, with no disrespect intended to anybody, because we all have our different styles of listening. We all like listening to music in different ways, but the Lush it's everything about, I mean, you know, it's about being as unnoticeable as possible. It uses a tuck style bass, which is something which Ziggat does very well. It tucks in at approximately 180 hertz roughly. The gain of the bass at its peak reaches, below that point, reaches roughly, sorry, I'm actually looking at the graph so I don't mislead you guys. So we're talking 75, reaches about 7 dBs, okay, and that's at below 40 hertz. So there's not a lot of information there. So what I'm basically saying is that it's not a mid bass monster. It's about a very it's about being, the bass is there, so there's presence, there's sub bass, and there's just that slight presence of slam. It's not overdone, it's not overemphasized. That's not the intention. In terms of the pin, again, when we're talking about now, when it rises into the mids and upper mids, we're talking about a gain of roughly 4.5, 5 dBs. So again, very chilled, very relaxed, and that's what the whole sound of the Lush is about. The name says it all. You could say that it uses, I don't like using that term, but since it's become the normal, let's say it has somewhat of a meta type of tuning when it comes to that part of, let me just get here quickly the graph of the high senior. And then when I actually show it to you, you'll understand. You could say that it takes the formula of the high senior, the Mega 5 EST 7th anniversary, and toned it down even more. So made it even more, let's say, for lack of a better word, lifeless. And again, I don't want it to, I would like not to come across as by saying that it's lifeless, that it's just an IM that's for you to listen to music for a long time without wanting to be overly excited, without you wanting to be overly enthusiastic. So if you just want to listen to something very relaxed, some piano stuff, some vocals, the Lush does the work. If you are a rock fan, definitely not the IM for you. If you are an EDM fan, definitely not the IM for you. On the other hand, if you like something like Jacques Lassois Trio, Little Fusion G minor, something fantastic, it does it perfectly. It's really nice, and that's the reason why I've actually got here the Australia, because the Australia is the complete opposite. It's also a 1+4, and we've also got the Arete, and it's actually interesting because let's say the Australia will be the and again, for lack of a better comparison, will be the steroid, full of steroid individual, okay? The Arete, also from Ziggat, is like the intermediate before you get to the Lush. So it will be the let's say the CrossFitter, without wanting to offend anybody, and then we have the Lush, which is the person that likes doing his Pilates and his yoga and so on and so forth. So this is like for the yoga, Pilates, kind of very chilled out fans. To be fair, let's say the Arete is for the people that go to gym and just want to have a nice body for the gym, for the summer and look good. And then the Australia is for those of us that maybe like a little bit more oomph. So we're using maybe some steroids or some enhancements, and that's, I think, ultimately that gives the best description of the Lush. Nice IM, excuse me, very correct sounding in terms of its neutrality, but can be lacking a little bit of life at times. With regards to the build and the quality of the fit and so on, I mean, there's nothing to be said that Ziggat, as again, you know, the other brands that are here, Ziggat does its work perfectly. I mean, it fits beautifully. It's, you know, it's nice quality resin shell. There's nothing to be pointed there. Okay. What about the Arcanis, you may ask? Well, the Arcanis is, let me just quickly get the Arcanis going here. Okay, what is the Arcanis then? The Arcanis is also a hybrid, but a 1+5. So it's got five BAs, and what they've gone for in the Arcanis is, let's say, the same sort of neutrality, yes, the same sort of very relaxed type of sound, but it's done in a manner where there's a little bit more forwardness in the mids. In the bass department, although there is, and to be said, it's not actually a 1+5, it's a 2+5 to be perfectly correct. There's actually two dynamic drivers being used for the low end, but the way that low end has been done again is very relaxed. So you could say that although there is a little bit more bass because of the usage of two dynamic drivers in the bass department, the way that bass has been tuned is still very neutral. The mids, especially in that area of 800 to 2 kilohertz, 2.5 to 3 kilohertz, is where we then have more energy as compared to the Lush. So the vocals are more forward, and then the extension past 10K is again more pronounced in the Arcanis. Ultimately, I would say that, or if the Lush is a neutral presentation, I would call the presentation of the Arcanis a neutral bright, or neutral forward, because of that extra energy that we now have in that mid-range to upper mid-range, and then that extension past 10K, we just gives it a little bit more atmosphere. In terms of the build and so on, you know, same situation as with the Lush. I mean, nothing to be said there. You know, spotless, beautifully constructed. The shells, the material in terms of the hardware being used inside. It's again all Knowles BAs, 32873s for the lower mids, 29689 for the upper mids, and part of the treble, and 33518 for the treble. The two 10mm drivers being used for the bass department in an ISO vary configuration. I would call it a push-pull, but anyway, and that's it. You know, so it's without wanting to repeat myself too many times, it's the same sort of philosophy as used in the Lush, although it's now a little bit more energized, and with that extra energy that you have, it makes it more a more entertaining IM to listen to. It will play more music genres better, in my opinion. Rock will still not be the ideal, but you know, if you really are a fan of jazz and vocal stuff, this will definitely do a much better job than the Lush by not being as like dull, let's put it that way. And please don't take, I don't want you guys to take the wrong way when I say it's, you know, with the Lush is dull or boring. And no, it's just a very relaxed presentation. That's it. Very, very relaxed presentation, and one that, if I have to choose between the two of them, I'll take the Arcanis. With regards to the technical aspects of either the Lush or the Arcanis is definitely the better one. Better soundstage, better imaging, better detail retrieval. Overall, the timbre and the tonality, I also would say that the timbre and the tonality here has a slight edge over the Lush, although it's probably the characteristic in the Lush that comes or is the better one. Bass, like I said, in both situations, it's a clean, detailed bass. It's, nothing to be pointed there. It's not sluggish. It's not nothing. If anything, it's overly dulled here. Here, there's a little bit extra life to it, just enough to make things a little bit more entertaining. Mids, they are well done for the concept that's being attempted to be done, without question. But the mids that I think will be the most entertaining will be the ones on the Arcanis, and the extension past 10k and so on. Definitely the Arcanis. So there's more twinklies and sparklies, like I like saying usually. And that's that, guys. I mean, two very, very good IMs, without question, with two very specific crowds of people, being the ones that are trying to be captivated. In terms of the price, the Arcanis does cost a little bit more than perhaps I would think would be expected, $350 if I'm not mistaken. It does push it, a little bit up there. I guess you can consider it the flagship from Ziggat. I guess the price will be somewhat justified, but yes, it does enter a price point where you start having a lot of other interesting proposals that perhaps are able to do the same sort of reproduction as the Arcanis, and still bring a little bit more to the table than the Arcanis does. So that's those two. Let's talk now about here the two KiwiEars, the Astral and the Septet. The Astral is a 1+6. It costs in the vicinity of $300, if I'm not mistaken, exactly. They've KiwiEars, much like Ziggat, you can see that they've put thought into their tuning. It's not just slapping together of parts and hoping that things come together nicely. They've definitely done their homework here, and when you listen to the Astral, it's evident by the way that it's been tuned that it's a competent IM. It is truly a competent IM. I'm just trying to get here the graph. Here we go. Take away this one. All right. In terms of the overall tuning that they've attempted to give us, or not attempted, they've given us on the Astral, they've taken an approach again, which is that kind of meta style of tuning, but they've given it quite a bit more, let's say, energy in the bass. And although it does graph very similar to the HIFIGO, it does come across just a little bit more thicker sounding in the bass. It could be due to the fact that yes, the HIFIGO then does have the two ESTs in the high end. I mean, there's a few things here that could be the reasoning behind this extra thickness. I don't think it's down to the parts being worse or better or anything of the sort, but ultimately, the tuning style that they've attempted here with the Astral is that style where you got a tucked bass, tucks in about 200 hertz, but because the tuck and the energy that it brings from behind is a little bit more significant than, for example, in the case of the Arcanis and the Lush, it does fill out the mid bass way better. We're talking about a gain of the bass of around 10 dBs, although yes, that majority of that extra energy is in the area around or from 40 hertz and down, but there's definitely more volume in that 50 to 150 hertz, which does give it the ability to slam a little bit better than at least the Lush and the Arcanis. That famous 100 hertz point that I like always using, it connects or it corresponds to about 2.5k here on the Astral, which for me is it's just perfect. It's just where I like to see it. beautifully executed mids, nice extension all the way through, good extension past 10K. So in terms of its technical capabilities, really good IEM. Great soundstage, great imaging, macro and micro details are phenomenal. A very larger than life type of sound, and of course at $300 you want to have that sort of performance. You know, this is what you're expecting. This is actually the stock cable of the KiwiEars. It's detachable terminations, as you can see. The cable itself has got a nice gauge to it. The IM, once again, beautifully constructed, resin shell, phenomenal. The tips, everything. I'm using everything that actually was supplied by them, because it does match nicely. There's no, although I did try a different cable. I actually tried the cable of the IROSO on it, and I mean there was no difference. I tried as well some different tips, but the tips that come with it are perfect. There's no need to change. So bass really well executed, sub bass focused, but with more than enough mid bass impact or presence. Crazy good mids, really good mids. Good extension, clean, no sibilance, no nothing. Really well tuned IM. Spot on. Septet. What is a septet? The septet is basically the quintet with two extra BAs. If you remember, the quintet was the first quadbrid at a more affordable price to be offered a couple of years ago. DD, 2 BAs, microplanar, and a PZT. This adds 2 more BAs, so it's got 4 BAs. The quintet was priced, if I'm not mistaken, at around $215 roughly. Okay, the septet is a little bit more expensive, $270. But I think that the price difference is well justified. Although the configuration and the basic concept is the same, the septet is a superior IM, and it's a superior IM. Why, you ask? Well, because they've maintained what the quintet had going for it in terms of its tuning. And the quintet, in my opinion, had really good bass, and you know, there was nothing wrong with that department. What made maybe the quintet a little bit too energetic for some was that the area from 2 kilohertz to about, let's say, 6 was just a little bit overly energetic to compensate what we had from behind in terms of the bass, and that made it just sound too intense at times, just too much. The septet, they've basically lowered that whole area. So from 1 to 4 kilohertz, there's a significant drop in terms of the energy. It's maintained that same bass. It's maintained basically the extension past 6K on one, and the other is basically the same, and done away then with that, let's say, excessive energy that they had placed there in that part of the spectrum, which for some was a little bit problematic. In my case, it never bugged me, but it just made the sound feel a little bit too intense, too colored, and ultimately for long listening sessions it was a little bit tiresome. It became a little bit fatiguing, but nothing that, I mean, you can say, oh, it's a deal breaker. Again, they're using that same sort of execution in terms of the mids to upper mids, which you could say is a little bit on the meta style. And once when I show you the graphs now in a couple of minutes, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. That is it well done? I would say yes. I would say that perhaps because of the way that they've done it, or because of the way of how they have executed it, it can give you the perception of it being a more entertaining IM, the septet, to listen to than what the high senior, the Mega 5 is. But ultimately, the Mega 5 does show its colors and does show why it costs more money by having a more polished presentation. It's not that it's like a huge difference, but you notice that there's just that little extra bit of polish in the presentation in the HIFIGO that does, in my opinion, justify the extra value that you have to pay for it. Other than that, in terms of the, like I said, the bass, the mids, everything is really well, be it the Septet or be it the Astral. The reality is they've done it really well in both cases. You would ask me, but okay, Tony, so they're so, they're both so good. There's roughly $30 price difference. Which one would you recommend? Look, to be honest with you, I would actually take the Astral. I don't know this. I just liked the Astral a little bit better. I think that the Astral, those extra $30 that it costs, are justified. Okay, one is trading. One is using two BAs instead of a microplanar and a PCT, sorry, to do the higher frequencies. It's up to an ultimate personal choice. I think the simplicity of the Astral ultimately is what makes me favorite over the Septet. Again, and let me make it perfectly clear, nothing wrong with the Septet. They both are really good IEMs, well priced, better in terms of the competitiveness of the price, better competitiveness in terms of price than, for example, the Arcanis, in my opinion. Although the reality is they all have different styles that they are trying to attain in their tuning overall. Yes, they all have that stuck style bass, but at different energy levels. That's the reality. This is the lowest energy level. This is the, let's say, the midpoint, and sorry, the Astral is the one that has the slightly highest energy level in terms of the bass. It is also the one that has the slightest energy level in terms of the mids to upper mids, but not a huge difference when compared to the Astral. Look, when I show you the graphs, you'll see exactly what I mean. Any one of the three are excellent IMs. Any one of the three are very capable. I just feel that the Astral and the Septet will be a little bit more capable for more genres of music. On top of that, they are more cost effective than the Arcanis. Okay, they have that going for them as well. So, 350, 300, 270, I guess you could ultimately say, well, if you want something really different and something very unique, then the Septet is probably the one that will make the most sense. I mean, if you are a buyer, or if you are one that already had the quintet, I guess this could be an upgrade, let's put it that way, especially if you did find the quintet a little bit unpolished at times. Okay, and then finally we have here the IVipQ, the Q09. Again, the 1+6, and the Q09. Let me just quickly get here the graph before I start blabbing and talking nonsense. Yeah, here we go, number 19. The Q09 is in essence, and to not overly complicate, and what I'm going to basically say for the Q09 is what I said about the Astral. Okay, it's very much an Astral until about 8K, and then it just loses that extension past 10K that the Astral has. So what this does is give you a more organic, arguably more musical presentation. This gives you a more detailed but equally organic sound. Okay, and that's the difference. What does the IVipQ have going for it? Well, it can be had at times for as low as $170, and that is a big price point difference between the two of them. Even when the normal price is $200, it's still a very competitively priced IEM, and that, coupled with the fact that it does bring, IVipQ is a cable manufacturer, it does bring a half decent cable. in terms of quality of construction, there's nothing that you would honestly point as a negative aspect on the IVipQ as compared to the Astral. Very equal footing. There's another IEM which kind of also sits very much in this duo of IEMs that I've just mentioned, which is the Jazeer 61T. Again, the same sort of bass, everything, just with a lower level of mids, upper mids and treble, which at the time when the 61T came out, it made people think that it was overly boring at times and so on and so forth and this and that. No, I've always liked the 61T. To be honest, I actually think the 61T is better than the 81T, truthfully. I don't think that the 81T has really brought anything substantial extra to the equation. But anyway, 61T, IVipQ Q09 and KiwiEars Astral are very much the same IEM up to, I mean, they graph identical in my, with, using the same TP50 for measurement, using the same tips. They all graph the same until 2.2 kilohertz, let's put it that way. And then what changed from there onwards was just the energy levels that you had from 2 to 8 and the extension that it then has past 10K, more or less extension depending on which IEM we're talking about. Okay, interestingly enough, the Jazeer has the midpoint of extension past 10K. But again, when I show you the graphs, you'll understand. So what I said earlier about the Astral in terms of the bass, execution, the mids, everything, phenomenal. The IVipQ has exactly the same rating, the same. I say exactly the same thing about it. It's just in that extension past 10K that it loses to the. So if you are a fan of organic sound but with a lot of twinklies and sparklies up there, then that probably will not be the ideal choice for you. All right, and there you have it, guys. I hope I was able to shed some light, especially here on these two, the Ziggats, and these two as well from KiwiEars, because these are two brands which have been very popular over the last 2 years with countless models which they've released, all of them always basically ticking the right boxes and focused for different types of people. That's the reality, and that's the same situation here. They've, that's why I'm not so much going to say, oh, this is the better IEM, that's the worst IEM. No. They all have a specific crowd, so very neutral type of sound here for the Lush, a neutral brightish on the Arcanis, so a little bit more comparatively to the Lush, let's say colored, but by that I mean it's a more lively, it's not as dead as the Lush, and please take dead with a grain of salt. As for the Astral and the Septet, you could call them two interpretations of the meta tuning done by the High Senior Mega 5 EST 7th anniversary, in that in the Astral they have very much I mean, it's actually quite uncanny how similar that they've been able to do the two. That how similar they sound, the High Senior and the Astral. But you do notice that there's that EST kind of tonality, which just polishes things up a little bit more up top. In the Septet, the same sort of sound overall. I just found that the energy balance between the mids, upper mids and treble in the Astral is more to my pleasing, to my satisfaction. But any one of them in reality are very very good IEMs. That's the truth. Okay, guys, I'll just run you through the graphs now quickly and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, let's talk now about the graphs here. Okay, so this first graph here is of the Lush. As you can see, everything is very relaxed, very neutral, nothing aggressive, nothing overly done. As I mentioned earlier, we have two other 1+4s from Ziggat, which offer two other alternative tunings. The first one being the Arete. I've normalized everything at about 500 Hertz. The Arete, which is a little bit more lively, vocals are phenomenal with great extension, past 10K. And then we've also got the Australia. Let me just change the color here, the Australia into red so that it's a little bit more stand out. And then we have the Australia, which is again another alternative. The Australia and the Arete, if you notice, yeah, the biggest difference really is in the bass energy, while you know it's evident the different styles of tuning. So colored, energetic, really full of life, and so on, the Australia. Mid-balanced point would be the Arete, and the more relaxed, more kind of chilled out, and so on, the Lush. The interesting thing about, yeah, the Lush, as I've mentioned as well, is that it kind of tries and gives us a little bit of a meta tuning, and I've just finished placing the Mega 5 EST up there, and you can say it's a Mega 5 EST even more relaxed than the high senior. Okay, by comparison, you have the Arcanis, which kind of follows the same sort of bass, although yes, it will be more noticeable, but it has have more energy here in this mid to upper mid range and in the past 10k area. And when you compare it here to, for example, something like the Arete, let me just quickly take away the Lush. So I've just got basically the Arete and the Lush. They have a very similar vibe going. I would say that the Arete is just a little bit more energetic in the presence area, so in the upper treble. But that polish that the Arcanis has is slightly lost in the Arete. Okay, and that is one of the things that maybe might be a justification for the Arcanis, is giving you that kind of balanced presentation across the whole board of the frequency range, still in a very neutral, non overly colored manner or anything of the sort. Okay, so that's that. Next is the oh my god, I had the Astral from KiwiEars. That's the Astral, as you can see. Nice big bass there. I mean, by comparison, for example, the Lush, you can see it's, but there's similarities in the tuning, as you can see there. There's similarities as well with the KiwiEars. Let me put with the KiwiEars. My God, with the high senior. Let me just make the high senior in green so it stands out. So you can see, especially between the high senior and the Astral, the similarities are blatant. It's there. The high senior is the green, the Astral is in the red. Very similar, very similar in terms of overall sound and everything, with the difference that you pick up on them both straight away is that there's a little bit extra more cleanliness and polish in the way that the up mids and treble are done in the high senior, and the bass for some reason on the KiwiEars sounds fuller, sounds richer, doesn't sound, as some people said about the high senior, as anemic. I didn't find the bass in the high senior in any way anemic. What I did find was that the high senior and a few other IMs also happens this, but the high senior is very much dependent on what sort of source you have. If you are using, for example, a ESS source, they will sound one particular manner. If you're using a Cirrus Logic, they will sound in a slightly different manner, especially affecting the bass region, and that has to do all with the impedance and the overall impedance that the high EM has, and the output impedance that those DACs, dongles, sources have, and the way they mismatch each other and interact with each other affects how the bass comes across. So in my case, my high senior, using my Cirrus Logic TP50, or even using my FIO, or even using my Frankenstein combo of the NX7 with the Yuki, and with everything that I used, which is what I usually go for, which is either AKM or Cirrus, gives the bass that I want. When I use the ESS, it has a tendency of lowering that bass, just making it a little bit sucked out, and you can graphically even see it. But anyway, that's not important. What is important is the Astral, as you can see, is, and it's fair to say, the Astral is very much a high senior Mega 5 EST at a significantly lower price. The septet, I've just dropped in the septet now there. As you can see, I'm just going to take away the high senior. The septet is basically the same thing, okay? Just with the difference that it loses a little bit of energy here in this 2 to 4K, gains it in that 4 to 6, but this loss here makes then, in my opinion, okay, the vocals on the Astral a little bit more balanced for my ears and for my musical taste, and also the fact that you have that little extra bit of extension up top makes it a little bit more interesting, more and bear with me, don't forget we have a PZT and a microplanar, so although there's this difference graphic wise in terms of how they graph, the difference in terms of sound when you listen to it is not this significant. Okay, yes, you do notice that there's a little bit more energy on the side of the Astral, or on the 1+6 as opposed to the septet, but if the septet had the same sort of energy, it would be unbearable to listen to, because that PZT would be screaming, that microplanar would be harsh. So there's a reason why it's actually being tuned to graph like this. It's so that the whole overall balance is nicely attained. Irrespective of what I've just said, either one of them sounds really, really good. I just personally prefer the Astral. I just find that the KiwiEars Astral just is more my vibe. That's it, basically. Okay, and then finally, let me take away the septet, the IVipQ, and you're gonna have a surprise now here with the IVipQ, as I mentioned. Let me just, there we go, 19. Okay, this is the IVipQ, and this is the KiwiEars Astral. And trust me, it's not here that you pick up the difference, it's there. It's past 8K that you see the difference, or hear the difference rather, in one and the other. And the other IEM that also joins this duo, like I mentioned earlier, is the Jazeer 61T. So 3 different levels from 2K above. The KiwiEars is actually the KiwiEars is the one that has the most extension past 10K, the Astral. The IVipQ is the one that has the least, and the Jazeer is the one that has the kind of midpoint extension past 10K. And in terms of overall energy level in the upper mids and treble, the Jazeer is the one with the least amount of energy, with the KiwiEars and the IVipQ being very matched. When you listen to the IVipQ and when you listen to the Astral, what is it that you notice straight away? Is that extra amount of detail, of twinklies and sparklies that the Astral has, makes it, as the name implies, a little bit more airy, a little bit more spacious, while the IVipQ sounds a little bit more closed down, a little bit more shut down. But it's still got really good, I mean, soundstage, really good imagery. There's nothing to be pointed. And like I said as well, you know, the price that it goes for it can be a really, really good price if you can pick it up on sale, like I picked up my particular unit. All right, guys, that's it. I hope you got some good information out of this review. And as always, like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free to ask me. Take care. Bye bye.